Hi, I'm Michael, and if you've attended any of our Sage 50 Accounts webinars before, you might recognise my voice. Throughout March, we're running our next Digital Badge webinar series. This series helps you to get to grips with invoicing, improves your knowledge, and boosts your confidence when using Sage 50 Accounts. There are 6 different topics, each one being run twice so that you have the opportunity to attend. Sessions include the creation of product invoices and processing credit notes. We'll demonstrate how to add your company logo and your bank details to your invoices, so they not only look the part, but also help you to get paid. There's also more advanced topics such as understanding the discount options that are available. Attend any 5 of the 6 topics, plus one of our quiz sessions to test your knowledge, and you'll earn your digital badge. To check the topics, dates and times, and to register for your free place, head along to sage.co.uk/webinars. I hope to see you there.
Hi everybody. If you're looking to streamline your day-to-day bookkeeping and keep your accounts accurate with less manual work, now is the perfect time to get familiar with bank feeds in Sage 50 Accounts. We're running a 2-part webinar series that will guide you through everything you need to know, from getting set up to confidently managing your reconciliations. In part 1, we'll focus on the essentials to get you up and running with bank feeds. We'll walk you through connecting your bank to Sage 50 Accounts. Following that, we'll look at how to use the auto match option, which saves you time, and learn how Sage automatically matches your transactions. We'll then move on to manually matching transactions and show you how to create Sage transactions directly from the bank feeds window based on your imported transactions from your bank without needing to leave the bank feeds window. This keeps your workflow fast, tidy, and all in one place. We'll explain how to review your approved match transactions and exactly what to look out for and how to keep everything accurate. We'll complete part 1 by demonstrating how bank feeds integrate into your reconciliation process. Part 2 covers creating and setting up rules. These are used to automatically process transactions as they download from your bank. You can create up to 300 rules for each bank account, so this can be a great time saver and where bank feeds really comes into its own. These are sessions all about giving you confidence while saving you time and keeping your accounts up to date with less effort. Join us live where we'll be hosting both webinars with demonstrations and practical guidance throughout. Don't miss this opportunity to make your bank reconciliation faster, smarter and easier. Reserve your place today at sage.co.uk/webinars, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this morning's session. This one follows on nicely from the standard management reports where we looked at the trial balance, the profit loss and the balance sheet, explaining how to run them, what to show, and where those figures come from. Today, though, we're looking at a really, I suppose, one of those popular questions we get. I haven't run my year end yet. I need to run my management reports for the next financial year. So we're going to be looking at current year, future year, and also previous year. So quite a bit to get through the days, quite a few options depending what it is exactly it is that you're after. We'll get stuck into a little bit of housekeeping before we get started though. So as normal, you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you do have one, you will find it's muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself during the session. If you've got any questions though, or you just want to engage with us, you have any comments, pop them in the questions panel. Just click the little speech bubble icon. It'll expand the panel. You start typing in that box and remember to click send. If anyone wants a copy of today's handout, so a copy of today's slides, there's two versions. There should be the full color version and also what we term the print friendly version. So if you do like to print them out and make your own notes, that's probably the option to go for. Right, now as normal, the session is being recorded. You will receive a link to the recording on your follow-up email, which you'll receive around about an hour after you finish. On that email, it'll also include links so you can register for our upcoming webinars. So I mentioned a few of those in those couple of little videos that we started playing at the beginning of our webinars now. So look out for our bank feed sessions. If you're still not using bank feeds, it can be a good time saver, that one. And also our invoicing series, which is a digital badge series that starts next week. So get yourself signed up if you haven't. I think you'll see as of this morning the digital badge series being advertised as you go into Sage 50 accounts. You get that pop-up message. So if you haven't already, do get yourself registered. Right, okay, let's have a look at what we're covering then. So this is the running order. So a little bit of an introduction to the webinar this morning. We're then going to run through a series of demonstrations. Now the order I'm going to pick on is current year, future year, previous year. So if you need reports from those financial years, how can you get at them? So we'll be exploring the options that you've got available. And then just right at the end, usual, tell you a little bit about the additional support. And if there's anything outstanding, I'll try and hang around and pick those questions up for you. Just myself running the session with you this morning. So you'll not see any typed answers. There'll be no links or anything shared. I'll just be reading those questions out here and there and either answering those verbally or maybe being able to demonstrate that a little bit or point you in the right direction. But keep your questions coming. If we don't get a chance to answer them on the session, normally I just drop you an email afterwards with an answer. So, a little bit of background. And as I say, I said at the very beginning there, this is probably the most common question I get normally when we talk about either referring to year end or we talk about management reports. That common scenario where you've gone beyond the end of your financial year, you haven't run it yet. Obviously, you can go as far as you want into your new financial year before you come back to run that year end. You might even go beyond the end of that one. But what options do you have when you need the likes of a P&L report? It tends to be the P&L report. Yeah, we could talk about the trial balance, the balance sheet as well, but I'm going to concentrate today on the profit and loss. That's generally what people are after. I need a profit and loss for my new financial year. I haven't run that year end yet. So that's what we're going to concentrate on today, the P&L, discuss the options that you have available for it. Similar options are obviously available for the trial balance and the balance sheet, but we're going to look at the three different financial years. Now, before we get started with looking at previous years and future years, I'm going to start with the current year. Now, obviously, this is purely just relates to the management report session that we've been running over the last couple of weeks. We've got one of these tomorrow as well, if anyone needs to, or anyone missed it or wants to attend for a bit of a recap. So your three key reports are available within the nominal codes ledger. You've got the options on the toolbar. Yes, there are other reports available as well if you go into nominal codes and then the reports area, but the three that you're most likely to use are the obviously the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. Now, I've got some tips there that I mentioned. We'll pick up on this as well when we run the management report session. So when you're running reports, think about maybe just saving copies of them. Your management reports generally relate to your current financial year. So if you're in a future year and you want to go back and have a look and you think, I've just lost that copy, how can I get a copy of that? If you've got it saved as a PDF, great, nice and easy to access. You can do that for any report or sort of document that you generate from Sage. Just export it and it should default to a PDF copy. So things like when you're at year end or say month end, or might be the end of a quarter or 6 months, or whatever you're doing, you can save your reports as a PDF. You've also got an option with regard to your, particularly for your manager reports, which is really useful, is to create a company archive. Now, this will be done automatically as part of the year-end process. That little tick box in the top section, I think it's the fourth option, be ticked automatically when you go to run year-end to create that company archive. But you can create a company archive at any time. So if you're clearing out records, which we've been concentrating on quite a few of the webinars this month, you can create an archive before that. You just go Tools, Period End, and there's the option to create an archive. And the other tip to quickly mention is batch reporting. Now, batch reporting is only available on standard and professional, so you don't get this option if you're on the essentials level. I'm just going to quickly pick up on a few of these points. So I'll share my screen and we'll quickly touch on them before we move on. So you see my desktop at that point. So quickly picking up on PDF copies. So when you're running reports, and obviously these three, they relate to your current financial year. So the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. So if you run one, for instance, if we just pick on the profit and loss, we'll send it to file. And when you send it to file, it's going to default to a PDF. So it's just a case of you choosing where you want to save that report to. So in this case, mine defaults to the desktop. But equally, if I've got a network drive, or I just want to save it somewhere else on my PC, I can just browse to that and give it a file name. Picks up the actual file name of the report itself by default, just in case you're wondering why it says PNL. So that's just an abbreviation of the actual file name of the design of the report itself. But you probably want to rename that. So if I'll just save mine to my desktop. Then prompted, obviously, what period you want to run it for. Obviously defaults to your current financial year. It'll become apparent in a moment why I'm still in 2024. So we'll just OK that. And that's essentially it done. So if in the future I do need that report, there it is there, I've got it. Obviously, you probably tuck it away somewhere in a folder or save it on your network, that type of thing. Just means if I need it, I've got a copy of it. So people associate that task with things like year end, month ends, but you can do that at any time. If you work in credit control, you might want just a copy of a particular report. Creating a company archive, as you mentioned, that is done within, normally when you go to Tools, Period End, and then Year End. Just click yes to that. You've got this little option here. It will create it automatically for you. We'll be coming back to the archive a little bit later on. So it just takes a copy of your data as it stands at this exact point in time, whenever your archive is created, basically. The other one to quickly mention with regard to running reports is the batch reporting option. So Tools, batch reporting. So again, you don't get this one if you're on Essentials, but what batch reporting enables you to do, if I just go into the batch reports area, basically means you can group reports together. So say if you're having to go into likes of, I just pick on this one, this is a default report that's provided for you. If I just preview that, this one is the trial balance, the profit and loss, and the balance sheet. So 3 key reports within your software that if you are going to run them, you're probably going to run them at the same time. So it means you specify one lot of criteria, you OK that, let it run. Should be fairly quick on mine. It's a tiny set of data that I tend to use. And all it's done there is it has opened up tabs for each of the 3 reports that were included. You can include as many reports as you want. Don't have to just be from one ledger. So if I wanted, for instance, to amend that batch report and say, well, as part of my, let's say, part of my month-end process, I run a trial balance, profit and loss balance sheet, but I also run things like an age debtors, age creditors. I can include those within that batch report just to save you a little bit of time. So you're not sitting there running one. When that's finished, you go on to your next one. So you group them all together, so you run them as a batch. So a good little time saver, that one, if you want on standard or the professional level. Again, it could be for any of your areas that you work in. So just to confirm that, it was tools and then just batch reporting. There's a separate webinar recording on that one. Don't run that one very often because it's such a quite a minor thing, batch reporting, but it is there just to raise your awareness a little bit. But the key is for your current year, it's just these three reports at the top here. Any questions so far? Go back to my slides. And we're going to move on. So next we're going to look at running reports for that future year. So again, that common support query, you haven't run your year end yet, and you need to run a P&L for what will be your new financial year. Now there's a few options for this one. Obviously, it might be a little bit of pressure for you to run that one as well. So you've got a couple of options. I've listed the obvious two. Standard report. So nominal codes, run the profit and loss report. If you run it to future, period-wise, then in the period column, essentially it picks up what will be your anything beyond the end of your current financial year. Now it's not date sensitive, that it's anything beyond that. So you've got a limitation in that you couldn't run it in my example. Let's say financial year ends at the end of December, and this set of data it's 2024. I couldn't run it for say February only. So it's just everything beyond the end of your current financial year, but it's a nice quick way of getting at that information. The second option is the transactional management reports, which is available in the standard level of Sage 50 and also the professional level. It's not available in Essentials. You'd find that by going into nominal codes, then reports, profit and loss folder, and you should have a transactional profit and loss. Now that enables you to run that report for a specific date range. So it's not just based around particular months. You could run it for whatever date range you want. So if you run it, let's say I want to run it from the 17th of January to yesterday, I can do that. I can be very specific with that date range. It's not based around those standard sort of monthly balances that the standard profit and loss would be run on. Now there is another option which I've not mentioned there, and it's something I wouldn't really encourage you to do. It's something you can do if you want, but probably the transactional management report is the best option. And that would be to back up your data as it stands at the moment. Run a year end on your data so that it advances your financial year. Run whatever reports you want, and then you restore back to the backup that you've taken prior to you running year end. Not something I would really recommend you do. It does get round the issue. Enables you to generate a report for your next financial year, but it's not something I would really recommend you do. Anyway, let's have a quick look at these two options. So I'll explain them in a little bit more detail. Let me just find the right option again to share my screen. Right, okay. So let's start with that first option I mentioned, the standard profit and loss. So if I run the P&L, we'll just preview it. So the current financial year on this set of data is January 2024 to December 2024. So from the drop down, if I wanted to run a P&L for everything beyond my end of my current financial year, what I can do is I can choose future to future. So remember that actual column in the nominal record. It went brought forward, then it was months 1 to 12 for whatever your financial year is, and then it's future. So anything you did beyond the end of your financial year would build up in that future monthly balance, as it were. So if I run that, and what I've now got is, and hopefully you'll remember how these reports calculate. Remember, period is always as per whatever period you specify. Year to date is always from the start of your current financial year, so month 1, up to the end of the period you specify. So in this case, that period column is looking at the future only. Similarly, if I drill down on it and drill down again, so all the way down to transaction level, you can see it's doing the period future to future. So everything beyond the end of my current financial year. So hopefully, I'll just zoom in a little bit so you can see those, give you a chance of seeing them anyway. You can see everything in this instance is dated sort of 2025. But again, if I had 2026 transactions in there, it would pick those up as well. So I can't be specific on that report. Just close back out. The best I can do is just say, right, well, this is everything beyond the end of my current financial year by choosing future to future. So that's a limitation of that one. But a lot of people don't realize that is there. But specifically future to future, you're looking at the period column, not year to date. Option 2 was the transactional management report. So we'll find that one within nominal codes and then reports. And you've got your various folders. Obviously, there's one for balance sheet in here as well. So you've got transactional balance sheet. You've got one for the trial balance. And it's the profit and loss I'm going to take a look at. So it's the transactional P&L report. So when we run this one, this is where we can specify a lot more criteria when you run a P&L like this, but this is where we can specify whatever period we want. So it runs from 1980 to the end of December 2050. Hopefully I'll be retired by then. But you've got your little finder icon. Normally when you get prompted for an exact date range, it will give you this type of thing. So what we could do on here is we could specify whatever date range we want. And one of the options is next financial year. But again, if I wanted to, beyond the end of my financial year, so going into 2025, if I wanted to run that for, let's say, the 17th of January to the 10th of February, I could do that. It lets you do it. Now, with this report, because none of the calculations are done already for you. So remember when we run the standard P&L, we looked at those monthly balances. So just adding up essentially those monthly balances when you run a standard P&L. With this one, it needs to look at individual transactions. So we just OK that. So it's going to take a little bit longer to generate. So even with my tiny set of data, I get that progress bar. But again, what I've got here is I can see in the period column, those would be the figures I'm after. So it's pretty much the same, except I can now dictate a date range. If I go back and just to show you it working, let's go into bank accounts and I'll put a bank receipt through. I'll date it in 2025. What date should I use? We'll use the first, no, we'll not. We'll use the 10th of August, 2025 for this one. So I do get date outside financial year. I could obviously tick the box to say, right, stop showing me that. I'll just put a reference in. We'll put the nominal code in. Just services. And if I do put a random value in there. So we've got £1,234.56, and I'll save that. So ordinarily, if I was to go back to nominal codes and I was to run the standard P&L, I can't report on, say, August by itself because it's outside of my current financial year. But if we go into reports, and again, we just go to P&L, transactional, just preview it. And what I'll do is I'll narrow this down a bit. I'll just change it slightly. So we'll do 1st of August 2025. And again, I could put whatever date I wanted in there. We'll set that going, see what it finds. So again, you get that little progress bar, and you'll see in the period column, it's picked up that transaction that I've just entered. Obviously, if there was others, it would add those in as well. But you can see it's allowing me that transactional P&L to report on whatever period I want. So if you're on standard or professional, easy option for you. Petula, your question. You said you want to run a period that crosses your financial year after you've run the year end. Is that possible? No, is the answer to that one. The reason for that is when you run year end, your year end balances are going to be cleared down. I'll try and demonstrate this when we look at the previous year in a moment. But the problem you have is when you run year end, some journals will be posted to your profit and loss nominal codes. So the likes of your sales, your purchases, your direct expenses. And when you run a report such as the transactional profit and loss, it would include those journals, which are going to be dated on the last day of your current financial year. So you can't exclude them from the report. So if you're wanting to, straddle that year-end date, as it were, you can't get out that information. Essentially, you would probably need to run two, and then manually add them together. Right. Okay. Any other questions? Keep them coming. Just to remind you of what we covered there for the future year and your options. We'll go back to the slides again. Seems to take ages with the new interface switching screens. So apologies for the bit pause we have. So again, options, your standard report, P&L future to future. Remember, it's a period column year after, or if you are on standard or professional, you can run the transactional management reports. So for P&L, nominal codes, reports, P&L, and then you've got your transactional P&L. Run that for whatever date range you want. Obviously, that would be for previous financial years, current financial year, or future financial year. Right, let's have a look at previous financial year now. So some of these are obvious, but again, people forget about them. So let's say I've run a year end, and I'm going to run one in a moment just so we can advance the financial year. So what options do we then have to report on 2024 even earlier? PDF copies. You've taken my advice when you run the likes of year end or month end or whatever, you'll have generated PDF copies and you will have saved them. So it's a nice, easy option. You've got a saved copy stored on your PC or your network somewhere. You've got a company archive. So company archive is obviously created automatically as part of your year end. You can access the archive, go into that company and run whatever reports you want. Remember, an archive is just an exact copy of the data as it stood at that point in time. It doesn't remove anything, just copies your data. Third option, which is a really good option these days, been around for a little while, this one now, is the ability to restore into your practice company. Now, this has been available since version 30.1. If you're not sure about your version, you would just go to Help and About within your software. It will list your version, top left corner. So it's 30.1 or above. can literally go into your practice company and one of the options that you now have is to restore a backup into that one. Just a temporary option. But if it's just a case that, well, actually, I don't have PDF copies, I don't have a company archive, I need to specifically refer to this report that I can't get from a live company now, you can restore that backup into your practice company and off you go. Without restoring or accessing other companies, etc., you've got other reports within your software. You've got the prior year report. You've got the comparative report. These are just additional icons on your toolbar at the top within nominal codes. And again, you've got that transactional management report. Now, there's a little trick for this one. Now, I'm going to include that in the demo. So we'll quickly run through these options. Again, switching back to my screen, my desktop, so you can see what's happening. Right, so the first option that we mentioned was to access your archives. So if I needed that, let's say I've run a year end, just access that that PDF copy, basically, whatever the report is. So I've got that information, no effort really whatsoever there other than browsing to wherever it's held, and I can generate that report. So it's a nice, easy one to go for. Second option was company archives. Now I'm just going to quickly run the year end on this set of data. I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of what I'm doing when I'm running year end. Obviously that's a separate webinar entirely, but you can see at the moment this financial year is January 24, it would run to December 2024. So if I was to run a year end on this one, so I'll just go tools, period end, year end, just accept all the options. So this is the option here where it's going to create the archive, which I want it to do. Just going to click run that year end. So yes to that prompt. Should be really quick on mine, just shy of 6,000 transactions, next to nothing. Just cancel out of that one. It tells me the year end or the financial year has been advanced to January 25 to December 2025. I'll just OK that. Right, so I'm in 2025 now. Now, if I go to nominal codes, let's say I want a P&L for the previous financial year. So you're probably aware of this one. If I choose P&L, let's preview it. And I do have an option, or I should have the option, at the top, brought forward. But let's say I want that for the previous financial year. If I choose brought forward to brought forward, this is exactly what you'd expect. You wouldn't expect to see anything on that report whatsoever. The reason being, when you run year end, it's posted those journals to clear down your year end balances. So that's just not an option. So company archive, I go file, open, company archive. This is the one that's being created as part of that year end I've literally just run. You might find you have loads of these archives been around for a long time now. So if you've used Sage for a long time, I think it's about version, off the top of my head, it's about version 9 or something like that when it was introduced. So we're up to version 33 now. So quite potentially, if you've archived as part of every year end, you could have quite a few of them listed. Plus the fact that probably a few years later, you could archive at any time. So you might have others that you've also created as well. But I've just got the one, so I highlight that one, I click open. It'll prompt me to log into the archive. Now, the trick with an archive is it archives your data. So when it takes a copy of your data, that includes your usernames and passwords for whatever they are at that point in time when the archive is created. So if you're forever changing your password, some people like to, some people never change it, it's whatever your password was at that point in time. If you get locked out because you can't remember what it was, get in touch with our support team. So anyway, I'm going to log into that archive. That's me into the archive at this point. So it tells me that at the top here on the title bar, it says archive. And then also you can see on the status bar at the bottom, it says January 2024. So it's back to the point in time when my archive was created. And it means I can then go to nominal codes, and let's say I wanted that P&L again for 2024. Because I'm back in that financial year, because that's when the archive was created, it means I can generate the reports again for whatever it is I'm after. So archives are a great reference option should you need it. So if you've deleted customers or suppliers since, they might be in your archive. Right. Now the third option, actually, I'm just going to quickly switch back to my live company. To switch back to your live company, you've got two options. One is just to close out your software. When you come back in and open Sage, it'll give you the option to log back into your live company. If I want to switch back to my live company though, save me closing out the Sage, it's just File, Open, Company Data. Just yes to that. Prompted to log back in. Again, you're back to your current password again then, if it had changed. So it's whatever the password is for your current set of data. And that's me back to my live company at that point. So it doesn't mention archive at the top. And you can see on the set of data, we're back to January 2025 as being the start date. Now, the third option on my slide was to restore a backup into the practice company. It could also restore, if you've got a secondary company, some people used to use that as well, which is probably why archives were brought in. To save you having to do that was always quite risky. And it meant previously you would have been potentially upgrading your license so that you could create a secondary company so that you could restore an old backup into. But you can now do that, restoring into the practice company. Now, two ways to access this option. It's just File, and you can either go to Open Practice Data. So we'll give you the two options. You can either use blank data. So if you want to try things in your software, you can start with a blank company, have a go of that. Or you can choose this option, use My Data, and that's going to then prompt you to browse for your backup. The other way you can access that, again, on the File menu, you've got to restore into Practice Company. It's the same thing. It's just going to take you where it's not giving you the option to use blank data. So again, you would just click Browse for your backup. So mine should be on my desktop. Got it tucked away. So let me just browse to it. Where's my management reports folder? Now this could go for anything. So if you, not just your previous financial year, you could go back to, if you've got a really old backup from, let's say 10 years ago, potentially you could restore that into your practice company. Right, now how do I know I'm in the practice company? Hopefully it's quite obvious. You've got this yellow bar at the top. So it's telling me you're currently in the practice company. Just quickly log in. It's taking us a while to come up there. So you're currently in the practice company. To access your live data, you would just go File, Open Company Data. But this, I'm in the practice company. So here, it's telling me the financial year on this set of data that I've just literally restored there is January 2024. So again, if needed, I could go in, I could generate the likes of a P&L based around that financial year or whatever other reports I'm after. And nice and easy. Also means that that functionality that we just looked at there, restoring into your practice company, if you come along to a webinar and you think, oh, well, I'd like to give that a go, like, you know, if we've discussed like budgets, for instance, or anything else for that matter, you might think, well, I'd like to try that, but I don't want anything to impact on my live company. You could give it a go, clearing your audit trail. You could give it a go within the practice company, run that option, and actually, how much does it clear? And does it actually benefit me by speeding things up? But anyway, I'm in that practice company at that point, which is an exact copy of my data I'm familiar with. I'm not having to key anything in just so I can see what happens. I can try things. When you're finished, you can either close out the software or you can just go back to File, Open, Open Company Data. So yes to that. Choose the one I want to go into. So we'll just choose that. My management reports company. It should just quickly prompt me to log in. So you'll see that yellow bar disappears. I'm back to my live company. Financial year starts January 2025 again. And that practice company, essentially that what I'd restored into that practice company, it resets it. So it doesn't hold anything relating to your backup or anything like that. I suppose that's one of the advantages if you needed it, where maybe having a spare company license that you could create a blank company and restore into that one. That's maybe that were a little bit more beneficial if you haven't got that archive, of course. So that's the first three options. Elaine, you mentioned there, can you post to the archive if you'd made a mistake prior to running year end? No, you can't. An archive is, as it suggests, it's an archive. So it's essentially a read-only copy of your data from that point in time. So you can't make any changes. You can remove certain information for GDPR purposes. So if you need to remove people's names and things like that, email addresses, you can do that, but you can't add any transactions. You can't delete transactions. You can't edit transactions. You can't post new transactions or create new records. It doesn't let you do that. It's an archive. It's there for reference purposes. Right, let's move on to the other options. So the other options were some of the reports that you've got available within your nominal codes ledger. So I'm in, obviously, the 2025 financial year. Let's say I'm trying to get that information from a previous financial year. We've covered the obvious ones. PDF copies, referring to a company archive, or if necessary, restoring that back up into the practice company. A few other options just for sort of your reference purposes, I suppose. If you go into nominal codes, you've got first of all, you've got the prior year reports at the top here. Now, the prior year report, if we just quickly preview that one, you basically run it for, let's say I want to compare the current year to the previous year. So if I just choose the whole of the financial year for my current year, it will compare that for the same period from the previous financial year. So obviously you get a lot of additional information on this one. So again, you'll be looking at either the prior year column or the year-to-date column, depending what period you run it for, of course. They're pretty much calculated in exactly the same way as what we covered in the management report session. So again, period would be for whatever period you specify. Actual would be for the exact period for the current financial year. The prior year would be for whatever period you specify, but the equivalent from your previous financial year. So again, it's a quick way of getting out that information if you need it, but there is that additional information on there. You've got the comparative profit and loss, which is pretty much the same as the prior year report, but there is additional information that you can include. So if we just quickly run it, you can include budget information on this one. I'm going to say do not show for that one. But for the prior year information, we can choose what is it we want to show. We want to see prior year values. Do we want to see them with variances? Do we want to see variances both a value and a percentage? If I just do the show option only, tiny font on this one, just so potentially it can fit all the information in. Even on my screen, I can already see that. So I zoom right in as just about as much as I can. You'll see, again, we've got that prior year information in there. So again, another quick way of getting at that information. Now, the final one I want to mention, and again, this is the transactional management report. If I go back into nominal codes reports, profit and loss, and we choose the transactional P&L. Now, if I specify the last financial year, so it's picking up all of 2024, and just OK that. This is what catches people out. So when I run that report, you'll see this is what we get, a bit like the previous P&L. And the reason for that is that when you run year end, you've got those year end journals. Those year end journals will be dated on the last day of that financial year. So in this case, they will be dated 31st of the 12th, 2024. And what I need to do to get at that information is to exclude those year end journals. So just specifying a date range, it would include them. But if I go to the transaction screen, and I'll look for those ledger year-end journals, which are these ones here. These are the ones causing the issue at the moment. So I'll just scroll up to get the right. What I'm after is, I am after the ledger year-end journal. So I can see the first one is 5992, transaction number wise. So what I want to do is I want to run the report and say, right, I only want you to include transactions up to and including 5991. Well, I could also specify a date range if I didn't have any other transactions dated on the 31st of 12th, 2024. I could say, right, run it to the 30th of December 2024, and it would exclude these transactions. If I do have other transactions on that date, then that's not going to work. So find your ledger year-end journals. I can see the first one as I say 5992. So I want to go back to nominal codes, reports, profit and loss, transactional profit and loss. So again, I'll specify the date range. And also, I'm going to specify the transaction number range as well. So rather than it being, what's that? It's like 99 million there. Yeah, rather than it being nearly $1 billion or whatever that is, I'm going to specify 5991. So the combination of the transaction number range, I'm looking for all transactions from 1 up to all postings that were made prior to running that year end, but only the transactions that fall within that financial year as well. So that combination will exclude those ledger year end journals from the transactional P&L report. What I should then be left with is the figures I'm after. So again, it's the period column that I'm after. But the trick with that one is remembering to exclude those year-end journals. Nice and easy to do, but just remembering to do it. I think a lot of people look at that and think, well, it's just zeros, so I can't get at what I'm after. So just using that criteria to your advantage. Right, now that just about covers what we needed to cover today, or what we'd planned to cover. Just about on time for a change as well. I'm going to go back to the slides. I'll pick up any outstanding questions in just a couple of minutes. So again, just having a quick recap on that previous year. A few different options. Easiest ones, company archive or restore a backup into your practice company if you've got one. Do whatever you want then. Reporting wise, that's what they're there for. And beyond that, you're probably unlikely to use the prior year report or comparative. I just wanted to mention it because it is possible. Transaction management report, you've got that one available if you're on the standard or professional levels. So hopefully you should be able to get what you're after. Right, any final questions, start popping them in there now. I'll pick them up in just a moment. Again, if you want a copy of today's slides, just as a bit of a reminder as to what options you've got, do download that while you're on the session. A link to today's session, the recording of today's session, that will be on your follow-up email. You'll get that in around about an hour's time. Loads of information in our help center. Obviously, you've got your Sage Assistant now as well. So when you bring up your help, scroll down to I think it's like a black panel for Sage Assistant. You start typing your questions in there, see if it can answer your question for you, or at least point you in the right direction. Loads of webinars coming up as well. We always include a link to our registration page. If you were with us at the very beginning of the session, got some great sessions starting next week. We've got the digital badge series for invoicing. So if you want to come along to that one, please get yourself signed up. There's loads of topics relating to invoicing. And also, I think starting next week as well, Laura's going to be taking you through bank feeds. You've not touched bank feeds before. Maybe you've looked at it in the past. You thought, oh, it's not right for me. Or maybe it wasn't compatible with your bank at the time. There are alternatives, so you can import manually these days into the bank feeds area. But bank feeds, if you've not used it before, do come along. You never know, it might be a great time saver for you. You can set up rules so as transactions download from your bank. If the software can then recognize it based on the rules that you've specified, it can automatically post your transaction into your accounts for you. So a bit like when you look at your bank statement and you're like, oh yeah, bank charges, or you look at maybe your description and you think, oh, that's for such and such. If the software can identify it based on the rules that you've specified, it can then say, right, well, I recognize that transaction. What you've instructed me to do is post, say, a bank payment for vehicle fuel, for instance. It'll post that bank payment for you, saving you time. So it could be a good time saver, that one. Right, finally, just brings us to the end of the session. I think I've got one question from Simon outstanding. I'll come back to that one in a moment, Simon. But thanks for coming along. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope it's built on that knowledge that you've gained, hopefully throughout the sessions that we've been running. So the nominal records, the chart of accounts, the management reports, and obviously today we've looked at outside of your current financial year. Just almost like sort of related, but also not. But it sort of goes hand in hand with your management reports. Next week we're going to be looking at reconciling your aged debtors and your aged creditors. It's a very common thing to look at year end and maybe not be able to get right. So getting them sort of your total of your aged debtors to agree with the likes of your total debtors on your trial balance or your balance sheet, or your creditors. So getting that breakdown of individual customer or supplier balances, getting that total to agree with your key management reports. If you want to find out more about that, hopefully we'll see you then. It's repeated the week after. Right, so if you're about to leave, many thanks. If you can take a minute to complete that survey as you leave, be greatly appreciated. Let me know your thoughts, what you liked. Is there anything we could do to improve the webinar experience for you? It was just myself today, so you wouldn't have seen any questions or answers being typed because I was reading them out. But other than that, any thoughts, ideas you want to share, let us know. Also, topics you'd like to see covered going forward. Saves me sitting scratching my head thinking, what should we cover in April? Let us know. Your follow-up email with the various links, the link to the recording, etc. That will be with you in an hour's time. Now, I've got one outstanding question. from Simon. What's a quick way of finding posted journals or invoices which have been posted in the current financial year because the year end has not been run? Let's have a quick look at that one. Simon, I'll pick your question up separately, so I'll just drop you an email. If you give me about probably this afternoon now, I'll get a spot of lunch and then I'll come back to you with an answer to that one. I might need a little bit more information from you. Right, we'll end the webinar just at that point. Once again, many thanks for coming along. Do get yourself signed up for the aged reconciliation session. That will be on Tuesday morning at 11 next week. And repeated, I think, on the Wednesday afternoon, the week after. But loads of sessions. So hopefully I'll see you on some of them soon. Many, many thanks.